Well, a formal good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2012 Fort Nelson Tattoo.
Stephen, has this got a flash? Is this going to flash? You see him? He's expecting it. Come on in, I can see him now.
Well, that was the sign of the 16-pounder muzzle-loading rifle cannon, and now the opening fanfare. Gentlemen, British troops first occupied Fort Nelson 141 years ago, in September of 1871, and the gun that you've just seen fired by the Portsmouth artillery volunteers is a 16-pounder rifle muzzle-loaded drill gun, a Victorian artillery piece of a similar age to the fort. Originally constructed as part of a massive ring of brick, masonry and earthen fort, it was built to provide firepower to deter an enemy attack on Portsmouth from inland. Very sneaky, these French people. Fort Nelson has played many roles in its long history. For example, way back in 1939, at the outbreak of the Second World War, Fort Nelson was chosen for conversion into an anti-aircraft ammunition depot, supplying all the batteries that defended this vital part of Britain's south coast. Since 1995, the fort has been home to the Royal Armoury's collection of artillery, the big guns. And one such big gun that you can see deploying now is this Second World War Sexton. It's a self-propelled 25-pounder, which is regularly fired, as it is today, by members of the right-of-the-line gun detachment. The gun is based on the old Sherman chassis, and the 25-pounder, of course, is a gun howitzer, which means it can fire over open sights in a straight line against the target, or the barrel can be raised up to fire over obstacles. And in this mini scenario, it's been detached from a troop of armour in Normandy, perhaps, and tasked to take out a particularly stubborn gun emplacement. The two officers in the jeep are no doubt receiving the coordinates from an FAO, forward artillery observer, or perhaps even from one of the Oscar spotter planes. The gun's got an attachment of 6 gunners, and appropriately enough, it'll fire 6 rounds. And it was first deployed, although it joined the British Army in '43, its first series of engagements were during Overlord and the Normandy landings. And indeed the sextons were known to have fired from the landing craft as they approached the beach. They could carry 105 rounds of high explosive, usually with a handful of armour piercing just in case it bumped into something bigger and heavier than it. So there we are, the sexton, followed out by the officers in the jeep, and having to push their piece of ordnance, the Portsmouth artillery volunteers. Ready in the distance, they and you can see the pikes and the banners of a small company of the new model army, together with their newly issued red coats. The first time such a uniform had been worn by a force raised by Parliament, and it was to be the forerunner of the famous coat worn on parade by sub-regiments of the British Army today. The army was formed by an Act of Parliament in 1645 to finally resolve the issues between King and Parliament, and their first field engagement would be on this very day on the fields of Naseby. Commanded by Sir Thomas Fairfax, the armour numbered some 13,500 men under arms at the start of battle, and they faced a veteran royalist army, confident after a string of victories over a previously disjointed and disaffected parliamentary force. The new model army, known to the Cavaliers as the new Noddle army, and they were treated with some contempt. But at Naseby the parliamentarians proved their mettle, dealing the King's army a savage blow and routing them from the battlefield. You'll now get some idea of the comparative speed of loading muskets versus loading a cannon. A well-trained musketeer should be able to fire 3 aimed shots in a minute. But these men are pretty tired after a battle and a long pursuit, fighting over many miles of rolling countryside. And they're still under fire from our royalist artillerymen. The front row kneels, the second row always closes over the top so that they can bring all their guns to bear on what is now called a volley fire. This is an intimidating style of fighting used to demoralise the enemy and to bring maximum weight of shot on an opposing unit.
It takes a long time, doesn't it, really? By the time you've loaded your gun,
Well, as you see, the gun crew is being reduced in numbers, but they continue to load their cannon in a final desperate effort to see off these parliamentary troops and make good their escape. And even now the gun captain is preparing to fire.
No, the girl, watch that girl, she fires. Get any quieter.
Well, despite the fact that he's facing quite a considerable opponent, the parliamentarian commander is rather flushed with success from the battlefield, and he will insist on pressing home their advantage. He has called for the company to march forward now that the gun has fired. The musketeers are loaded, the pikes are raised to the advance, and the drums and colours will beat the advance. March on!
And the dead soldier came back from
The infantry of the 17th century were masters of the battlefield, until, of course, they came up against the cavalry. And then they would have to change formation very quickly and use the pike and musket together to defend themselves from mounted troops. I know, let's have a bit of fun and see what happens when I shout, "Alarm! Alarm! Cavalry to the rear! Cavalry to the rear!" As you can see, not surprisingly, the infantry have now lost all interest in such a small cannon and are very concerned about preserving their own skins. The commanding officer has given the order, prepare to receive cavalry and to protect the drums, colours and officers. The musket and pike have a defensive formation known as a hedgehog. The pikes form the prickly outer skin, keeping the cavalry at a distance. And between the pikemen crouch the musketeers who shoot at the cavalrymen, being kept at bay. As long as the formation holds, well, it's a good defensive position. And the forerunner of the British square of the Napoleonic period 200 years later. However, if the cavalry did get into the formation, it could cause havoc. But, alas, the officers realise there's no threat of cavalry. And causing the company to reform in its original divisions, he seems a bit cross, doesn't he? For the trick we played on him. And it looks like he intends to bring this matter to a conclusion through the use of cold steel. You have just received a charge, a point of fight with club musket butts and drawn swords. It'll be a bloody business, sorted out by nothing other than the soldier's arm and their commitment to the cause for which they... Well, I think you can see that the gun has been captured.
Are they still doing it? No, they're not doing that. No.
But the gun captain and his remaining crew seem to have been spared. Well, it's not unusual. Artillery pieces and the gunners that worked them would have been a prized commodity. And here you see what so often happens. The guard commander has come to terms with the gun captured. Direction of their bandmaster, Warrant Officer Oliver Jeans.
boots, doesn't it?
Man, ready? After the rules! Quick, march!
Airborne and their British counterparts in the Parachute Regiment were among the very first Allied forces to see action as part of the advance force on D-Day, arriving around midnight and parachuting from there Dakota aircraft if they were British, or C-47s, Sky Troopers and Sky Trains if they were American. And both would suffer heavy casualties as part of Overlord and the battles that followed. The 101st would achieve an enviable battlefield reputation both at the time and in history. In fact, it's generally acknowledged as being the finest of the American divisions. It was formed, ironically, a fortnight after Britain's own Parachute Regiment, in the 15th of August in 1942. It did most of its training at Fort Bragg in Louisiana. And in mid-August 1943, it would come to the UK for training, based in Wiltshire and South Berkshire, notably around Ramsbury and Newbury.
These are the sort that we find.
Is that all right?
These rifles are the ones that I find.
A little bit of bumping and falling going on there. I think that calls for a steward's inquiry. Thank you. The commentator is rather thirsty. This quick march he had composed during the battle, following the long tradition in which pipe majors were encouraged to write tunes to commemorate any actions in which their regiments have been engaged. And he named his tune, The Crags of Tumbledown Mountain. Regiment, followed by the British Youth Corps of Drums. They shall be followed by Colonel Robert Hammond, Regiment with the arena, the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles.
They're all sand.